There's this place about 30 miles outside of town, a hospital that's been abandoned for decades. Locals call it the Hill. Not because of the location, but because of how it feels. Like something is always looking down on you from there. Most people don't go near it anymore. But for a small group of urban explorers, 3 friends who've been filming abandoned places for YouTube, it was just another cool location to check out. They weren't scared. Not yet. They parked at the bottom of the road just after midnight, hiked up to the overgrown trees, and found the place exactly how the internet had described it. Massive, crumbling, and totally silent. But here's the thing. This wasn't just an abandoned hospital. It was an asylum. The kind they don't talk about anymore. The kind that had wings for treatment, and others for what they call containment. And as the group would soon learn, some wings weren't listed on any map. There's something about abandoned hospitals that just feels wrong, even before you go inside. It's not just the decay or the moldy walls. It's the way the air feels heavier, like time decided to stop, but left all the bad memories behind to rot in silence. So when 3 friends, experienced urban explorers, decided to check out this old psychiatric hospital up on the hill, they thought they knew what they were getting into. Rusted gurneys, graffiti, maybe a few birds or raccoons crawling through the vents. They'd been to plenty of these places before. This was supposed to be just another creepy video for their channel. The hospital had been shut down for nearly 40 years. There were rumors, of course, whispers about unethical experiments, patients going missing, that kind of thing. But you hear stories like that all the time when it comes to old asylums. Most of it's just internet legend. At least, that's what they thought. They parked down the road around midnight, keeping their headlights off as they hiked up the hill. The building came into view like something out of a nightmare. 4 stories of crumbling brick and busted out windows. The moonlight hit it just right, making it look like it was watching them. But still, nothing too crazy. Not yet. Once they got inside, the place was exactly what you'd expect. Peeling paint, rust stains, smashed tiles, the scent of old mildew mixed with dust. The air was stale, like it hadn't been disturbed in decades. They started filming right away, walking through the main lobby, then up the grand staircase. Old patient rooms lined the halls, their doors hanging crooked on rusty hinges. Wheelchairs sat abandoned in corners like they'd been pushed aside in a hurry and never touched again. Torn hospital curtains still clung to their rods, swaying slightly from the occasional draft that snuck in through cracked walls. It was quiet, too quiet. After an hour or so of exploring the upper floors, they moved down to what used to be the physical therapy wing. That's when things started to feel off. The temperature dropped slightly, just enough to notice. Their breath didn't fog up, but they all mentioned it later. The weird chill that suddenly hung in the air. The hallway was long and narrow, with broken mirrors on the walls and old parallel bars still bolted to the floor. A toppled walker lay abandoned in the corner. One of them shined his flashlight toward a collapsed section of drywall near the end of the corridor. At first, it just looked like damage from age, broken support beams and insulation poking through. But then he noticed something strange. Behind the debris was a space, not just a hole in the wall, a hallway. The drywall had crumbled away just enough to reveal a narrow passage, no more than 3 feet wide. It shouldn't have been there. They had looked at floor plans before coming. This wing was supposed to end here. There were no doors, no additional rooms, just a solid outer wall. But this was something else. The hallway beyond the collapsed wall was different, completely untouched. No graffiti, no broken glass, no signs of decay. It looked like time had just skipped over it. The linoleum floor was still mostly intact, dull but clean. The walls were bare, no peeling paint, no mold. Just empty, sterile white. They stood there for a second, staring into it. The rest of the building looked like it had been through a war. But this hallway? It looked like it had been maintained, preserved, like someone had made sure it stayed that way. They crawled to the gap one by one. The air inside was colder, but somehow heavier too. Not just cold from temperature, but cold that presses on you. You could hear your own breathing echoing slightly. Every step felt louder than it should have. The sound of their boots on the floor had this weird metallic ring to it, like they were walking through a space that wasn't meant to be disturbed. They didn't say anything out loud, but something about that hallway made all three of them slow down. They weren't excited anymore. They weren't curious. They just felt nervous, like they were being watched. About 10 feet in, they came across a door on the left side of the hall. No label, no room number. Just a plain steel door with no handle. It was shut tight. Across from it, the wall was oddly smooth, like something had been painted over. You could almost make out the outline of something underneath the layers of white. Maybe a window, maybe something else. Further down, the hallway bent slightly to the right. The shadows seemed to move with them, not in a paranormal way, just subtly wrong, like the light from their flashlights didn't behave normally anymore. It curved where it shouldn't. It faded too quickly on the walls. Everything felt off. One of them turned around to look behind, just for a second, and swore the drywall hole they crawled through looked smaller now, like the building was folding itself back together. That's when the silence started to get loud. Not actual sounds, but this creeping, buzzing pressure that filled their heads, like tinnitus, but lower, deeper, almost like a hum just beneath the surface of hearing. It made your skin crawl, like being underwater and realizing something's circling you, but you can't see it. They didn't say a word. They just looked at each other. That look when you know something's wrong, and no one wants to be the first to admit it. One of them pulled out his phone to check the time, and it was dead, fully charged an hour ago, now completely blacked. The others checked theirs. Same thing. No power. No response. They should have left right then and there. After crawling out of that hidden hallway, after stepping back into the decayed wing of the hospital, where everything was falling apart, they should have grabbed their gear and gone straight back down the hill. But they didn't. And not because they were brave, but because they were curious. That stupid kind of curiosity that makes people in horror stories ignore their gut. They all felt it. That creeping chill, that pressure in the air, that sense that they had stepped into something wrong. But for some reason, they needed to see more. They didn't say it out loud. They just glanced at each other and turned back toward the hole in the wall. This time, everything felt slower, colder. When they ducked into that hallway again, it was like walking into a sealed tomb. Their breath came out just a little heavier. Their flashlights cut to the darkness in tight beams, but even that light felt thinner now, like it was being swallowed by the walls. And that hallway, it was longer. It shouldn't have been, but it was. They walked further this time, maybe 50 feet beyond where they'd stopped before. The silence was deafening, thick and full of weight, like a blanket pressed against your ears. Each step echoed in a strange way. The sound didn't bounce normally. It just vanished, and then the lights came on, not flickering, not slowly warming up like old fluorescents usually do. They just snapped on, all at once. Every single bulb overhead buzzed to life, casting this cold, sterile glow across the hallway. For a moment, everything was washed out in harsh white light. The shadows vanished, and that silence, gone. Because now, they could hear the humming. A low, electric buzz that filled the air like static. And it wasn't just in the lights. It was in the walls, in the floor, in their bones. They froze. It was too clean, too perfect. The kind of lighting you'd expect in a hospital still in use. But this place had been shut down for decades. There shouldn't have been power at all, let alone bright, humming lights that looked like they'd been turned on from a control panel somewhere deep inside the building. One of them slowly reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. No signal, but the screen came on. He tried to start recording, and for a second it worked, until the screen glitched out, colors distorted. The camera app froze. Then the whole phone died. Black screen, battery gone. The others tried theirs. Same exact thing. Batteries dropped to zero, just like that. No warning. No explanation. That's when the hallway changed. At first, it was just a sound. A faint scraping, like something dragging against the floor. It was far away, barely noticeable over the buzzing lights. But then it got louder, closer, like something heavy being pulled slowly, rhythmically across tile. It wasn't coming from the way they'd entered. It was coming from further down, around the corner where the hallway bent to the right. And then, just like that, the lights started to go out. Not all at once. One by one, starting from the far end. Click, buzz, darkness. Then the next. Click, buzz, darkness. The sound of that dragging kept getting louder, closer, and the lights kept shutting off behind it. Like whatever was coming was chasing the dark toward them. Click, buzz, darkness. Each bulb that went out felt like the room was breathing in tighter, more suffocating. That mechanical hum started rising in pitch, like the building itself was straining under something invisible. They didn't talk. They didn't need to. Their eyes locked for half a second, and they ran down the corridor, back toward the gap in the wall. Their boots slammed against the floor in frantic rhythm, but no matter how fast they moved, the lights behind them kept going out. Each one dying with a violent buzz, like something was chewing through the wires. Click, buzz, darkness. Click, buzz, darkness. And then the dragging stopped. That sound, so slow and steady, just stopped. Not faded, just gone. And that silence, so much worse, because the silence can hide anything. They reached the opening in the wall, climbed through one by one, breath ragged, hearts racing. When the last one made it out, he turned back just for a second, and the hallway was completely dark. But he swore, he saw a silhouette standing at the edge, right where the light should have ended. Tall, still, just barely outlined in the last flicker of white. Then the lights behind him, on this side of the wall, flickered just once, and everything went quiet again. Back in the ruined wing, the air felt different. Not normal, but better, like stepping out of cold water. Like the weight had lifted just a bit. They stood there, breathing hard, trying to process what just happened. But here's the thing. They didn't hear footsteps. They didn't hear doors slam or creak open. What they heard was nothing. Total silence. Like the building was listening. The rest of the hospital didn't feel haunted in the way you see in movies. There were no slamming doors, no whispers or screams echoing down the halls. What made it terrifying was how quiet it became. How the hospital just accepted them, like it had closed in around them and wasn't ready to let go. They didn't go any further. They didn't speak. They just walked back down the halls they had come through an hour earlier. Now somehow darker, colder, more distorted. Every turn looked the same. Every hallway felt like it was watching them. When they finally stepped out into the night air again, the wind felt wrong. Still, heavy, like the world had moved on, but something from inside the building had followed them to the door. After they made it back to the car, no one said a word. Not during the drive down that winding hill. Not while they passed the rusted gates they'd snuck through just hours earlier. The silence between them was a relief. It was shock. Raw, silent panic. That kind where your mind still try and convince you nothing really happened, even though your body already knows the truth. The tires rolled over gravel. The radio stayed off. And when they finally hit the main road, they didn't even look back. The next day, the whole thing felt like a dream. A bad one, like their minds had blurred out to protect themselves. They didn't text each other, didn't check in. It was like none of them wanted to break whatever fragile distance they had created from the memory. But later that night, one of them, Ryan, sat alone in his apartment with the camera gear still in his backpack. He hadn't touched it since they got out, but something kept bothering him. That hallway, the way the lights came on, the glitching phones, the dragging sound. He didn't even remember pulling his camera out once they were inside the hidden wing. But just in case, he popped the memory card into his laptop. Most of the files were unreadable. Corrupted thumbnails, static-riddled file names. The footage from the lobby and upper floors? Gone. Just black screens, white noise, like something had burned straight through the data itself. But then he found one clip, just one, 10 seconds long. No timestamp, no metadata. It shouldn't have been there. He hit play. It started with darkness. The screen was grainy, full of digital noise like a night vision lens with no infrared. But slowly, it cleared just enough to make out the shape of the hallway. That hallway, the one behind the wall. Only now it looked different. Darker, colder. The lights were off completely. No hum, no flicker, just silence. But there was enough ambient light from somewhere, maybe the glow of the camera itself, to reveal the floor tiles, the sterile white walls, and the figure, standing at the very end of the corridor. It wasn't moving. It didn't sway. It didn't breathe. It just stood there, motionless, almost blending into the shadows. But the shape was unmistakable. Tall, gaunt, shoulders slumped like its body had been bent for years. Limbs long, thin, almost too long. Its face was impossible to make out at first. But then, as the grain settled for just a second, there it was, a cracked surgical mask. White, dusty, split down one side like it had been worn far, far too long. Its eyes, if they were eyes, were hidden under deep sockets. Black pits that didn't blink. And just as the clip ended, it tilted its head. Not sharply, not with aggression. Just a slow, deliberate tilt, like it saw the camera, like it knew it was being watched. Then the clip glitched out. Static burst across the screen, and the file closed on its own. Ryan sat there for nearly 10 minutes before he could move again. He didn't sleep that night. The next day, he tried to recover the rest of the footage. He even ran recovery software. Nothing. The entire card was corrupted, save for that one clip. He showed it to the others a week later. And here's the part that really stuck with them. None of them remembered taking it. They swore the camera wasn't even out. That hallway was too dark, too quiet, and after the phones died, no one dared to try anything else. But that clip existed. And what was worse, when they slowed it down frame by frame, they noticed something else. In the last few frames, just as the static began, the figure didn't just tilt its head. It stepped forward, only by a few inches. Barely noticeable, but it was enough. Like it was trying to leave the hallway, trying to cross that line between whatever that place was and this one. After that, Ryan tried to upload the footage to the cloud. It wouldn't upload. Every time it got to 99%, it failed. When he tried emailing it, the file corrupted mid-send. And one night, when he went to show a friend, he opened the folder and the clip was just gone, deleted without a trace. And that would have been the end of it, except for what happened a few months later. Someone online, an urban exploration Reddit thread, posted about a strange glow scene at night near that same hill. A couple had been driving through the area late, heading back from a camping trip. And as they passed the old hospital, they saw lights, but not from the main building. Not the old, boarded up sections everyone knew. No, it was coming from one specific window. Top floor, left wing, the exact area where the hidden hallway had been. They said the lights were bright, cold, unnatural, and for a moment, they swore they saw a shadow pass behind the glass. Something tall. It moved slowly, like it didn't know it was being watched. Or maybe like it didn't care. The post got taken down after a day. And that hospital? It's been sealed off now. Fenced, patrolled. New, no trespassing signs have been posted everywhere. Locals say security was bumped up not long after someone broke in and left behind smashed equipment and a trail of bloody footprints that led nowhere. But if you drive by late enough, close to midnight on a cloudy night when the road is quiet, some people swear they still see one window glowing.